Sorry, the voice was, for some reason, the phone has muted itself. Great. Can you hear me now? الصوت سامعني؟ Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, I think now we are all set, and I think you can hear me now. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, good afternoon and good evening for those of you who are in the eastern side of the world. Thank you again for coming by and for sharing this moment with us. Unfortunately, I am speaking to you with a heavy heart about because of the dire situation on the ground in Sudan, particularly in Darfur, where genocide has been going on over the year, and now it's repeated again. And we all have been witness the recent incident that whereby people have been mass murdered because of who they are. People in Al Junaina, in Ardamata, were killed systematically by the rapid support forces. And why we have to speak to you today, because it is really urgent, and I wanted to speak to you with a sense of urgency. And I also ask for your help to hear from you loudly what we all can do to help to end what is happening right now in Darfur and in Sudan, and be able to hold those who are perpetrating these crimes accountable. As you know, the genocide in Darfur has been going on over the last 20 years. In 2005, the situation was referred to the International Criminal Court, and it has been legally determined that former President al-Bashir and several others were responsible of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide committed against the people of Darfur. Unfortunately, the international community and the Sudanese people failed to stand up with us to hold those perpetrators of the crimes committed against the people of Darfur accountable. And because of the immunity that is being allowed for President al-Bashir and other Janjaweed leaders and other leaders of his government, that now the entire people of Sudan are facing unspeakable suffering as I speak to you today. You know, in the recent months or weeks, death, destruction, mass killing of indigenous African people, particularly the Masalid and other African indigenous tribes in Darfur, have been systematically killed. I cannot comprehend, and I can't begin to describe, and I'm quite sure you all share me, especially those of you who are from Darfur, who we have been together collectively witness the video that is circulated around of people being killed and buried in a mass grave, some of whom are still alive, and they were forced, like their relative, people from their members of their community were forced to bury their relative alive. Can you imagine that this is the 21st century? The genocide can happen in its ugly, the most ugliest ways. And what I am really concerned about it, and this message is particular for my fellow Darfuris and the fellow Sudanese, we don't see outrage. We don't see outrage, even though in one day, 8 100 people, most of them are young people, between 15 and 20s. The oldest can be in their 30s, have been escorted, beaten, tortured, and massacred in a cold blood. And sadly, the Janjaweed have recorded themselves, showing the world that how brutal they are and how cruel and how criminal they are. So they are confident that they will show these pictures themselves. But let me tell you, these crimes, we must not all let it go unpunished. Genocide is an international crime. War crimes and crimes against humanity cannot be forgiven or let go with immunity. But that will only happen, to hold these perpetrators accountable, only happen if you spoke up and demanded that these people must be held accountable. Today, the entire Darfur is under the control of the Rapid Support Forces. City after city has been controlled and taken over by the Janjaweed militias, the Rapid Support Forces. Now, with exception of Al-Fashir, no city left safe in Darfur for our people to flee. And Al-Fashir is currently in the brink of collapse. At any time, they have been attacking Al-Fashir, and this is a place of where so many people, internally displaced people, have fled to Al-Fashir. Right now, most of them are living in public places like schools, other government institutions. Some people are moved even from within Al-Fashir, from the eastern side of Al-Fashir into the southern side. These people have no access to humanitarian aid. They have no access to medical assistance. They have no access to any other services, including food and water. They are barely surviving. And the world is watching. The world has been very quiet about the situation in Darfur and the situation in Sudan. Why? Because you did not speak. If you speak and demanded an action, you will mobilize and compel the leaders to act. We all know that under international law, or before we go to the international law, the responsibility and the protection of civilians in any nation, it is the responsibility of its government. But today in Sudan, we do not have a government that mixed with the Islamic fundamentalists and the Janjaweed militias. They are fighting among themselves, and today in Darfur, civilians are the ones who are bearing the brunt of the war. While in Khartoum, they can occasionally confront one another, but in Darfur, the attack is systematically directed toward civilians' population, and on their based on their ethnicity and based on who tribal affiliation, people are targeted and killed because of who they are. And you can see the attack in Al Junaina in June. It has been repeated now, this last week in Ardamat. Then after that, Zalinji has been taken up. The internal displaced people who have been driven out of their homes 20 years ago, now they are again under attack and they have nowhere to go. People fled. I am looking into this video that makes you feel you should never live to see this kind of a story being told. An elderly man in his 90 years of age, they were told and forced to leave the camp, and they told you should not take anything with you, otherwise they would be shot and killed. This was in Dalinge. These people fled their homes with nothing other than their pair of clothing that they wear. Right now, as I speak to you, these people are living out in the open with no food, with no medical assistance, with no access to clean water or any other survival means. And at the same time, this vicious, malicious. They are propagating that they are fighting for democracy. What kind of democracy that they will bring through a genocide? All this happening while many Sudanese have been gathering, meeting, and talking that they are trying to create a civilian front that will create a government that will end the problem. But they have not spoken about the atrocities that is currently being committed against the people of Darfur or the people of Sudan. Even now in Omdurman, in Khartoum, in various areas, in Bahri, every day we read the horrible news about people being bombed in their home or people being shot dead. But in Darfur, the story is completely different. Right now, the Rapid Support Forces is fighting to control Darfur. When they control Darfur, that means they will be wiping out all these indigenous Africans who have been singled out for years to be killed, to be exterminated because of who they are. And right now, you Darfuris and you Sudanese, you are not speaking up enough. You are not protesting. You are not outrageous. You have to speak up because these people have nobody other than those of us who are outside here. We have a space of freedom to speak and to rally support for them. We must speak up and compel the international community to act. The UN Security Council has the responsibility to protect Dr. Ryan under international laws. When civilians have been targeted by their own government or any other attackers, they are entitled to be protected by the international community. And that is what we are asking today. We must speak up loudly and demand that the international community intervene. You all remember the Save Darfur movement. I am very proud to have been a part of that movement. When the American public here in the United States learned about the genocide in Darfur, they all came out and organized themselves and they said, no, we must not let the genocide continue and we must hold our leaders accountable to the promise that they made, never again promise. They organized in the United States people from all different background, race, religious, creed, all kind of differences. They came together and rallied against the genocide in Darfur. And when they rallied, they spoke up. Other citizens around the globe, they joined them from Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Latin America, Central America, Australia, you can name it. All these people have come together and they start exercising pressure on their government and in our international institutions, including the United Nations Security Council, United Nations Human Rights Council, the International Criminal Court. As a result of that effort, we are able to get the United States to, at that moment, President Bush has declared the situation a genocide. Congress unanimously declared the situation a genocide in 2004. And those declarations has helped mobilize not only outrage, but also mobilize resources and humanitarian aid. Later on, led to UNAMID deployment, whereby even though we have criticized UNAMID for an inadequate response, but their presence was a deterrent factor, whereby places where they are present, they provide escorts for people. They provide emergency medical assistance, and they also documenting atrocities and helping people in need. Today, we do not have that. Darfur is completely being isolated. Even though there are small numbers of humanitarian aid, including medical assistance or medical supply that was brought through Port Sudan, it has never reached Darfur. It has never reached Darfur, and it will not be reached. With this kind of situation right now, Darfur is completely isolated. People are cut off of internet and phone access. That means right now, as I speak to you, our people are dying in silence. And nobody knows the magnitude and the scope and the level of tragedy that our people right now are going through. Because when you don't know, you don't know. But what we know is horrible enough to be outrageous and to be angry and to stand up for our people, to speak up for our people. Because right now, they have no voice. They have the voice, they have the power, but their voice have been oppressed, their power have been oppressed. Today, cutting communication in Darfur is worse than cutting people from food and water. Because if you can't communicate, you cannot help. People die, the next door neighbor will die without even asking for help because they cannot communicate. Even now in Omdurman, phone services have been cut off. Darfur has no any form of government with exception of Al-Fashir, but right now even the governor of Al-Fashir is not on the ground in Al-Fashir. So Darfur is completely out of the realm of government right now. And at this point, we must call for international intervention. You cannot leave people isolated in the hand of their exterminators. This is the rapid support forces that they are killing people because of who they are. They isolated all the cities. They attacked our people in Morne, in Mustare, in Zalinji, in Wadi Saleh, in Kutum, Tawila. All these cities have been emptied of its population and they forced them out. A few people later on went back. They are currently living under Stone Age slavery. People have to pay the rapid support forces every day. They can walk into your house and accuse you with anything and kill you. You cannot leave the city. If you are leaving, they will take everything you have and then you will be left with nothing. They are stealing vehicles, still burning markets, stealing, looting food storage, looting civilians' homes, looting even hospital and pharmacies. They make sure that they eliminate all survival means so that people can be left with only two options. Either to die by bullet or starvation, trauma, and disease. Today I feel for my fellow Darfurian in Al Junaina, in Ardamata, whereby their people have been dragged and murdered during daylight. That should have shocked us all and make us stand up on our feet and demand intervention. Without doing so, we cannot end this. You will be watching, sitting here. The day will come whereby we'll tell you that people in Darfur are dying in millions. And at that moment it will be too late. Now you have the time to end this. You have the time to stop this. Because our people are relying on us. Our people have no voice. They have nowhere to go. A few people who were able to escape through, to go to Chad, these are only the people in Al Junaina city and in West Darfur, whereby they are in close proximity from Chad. People from Morne are unable to go. They fled towards Dalinje, then Dalinje was under attack. People from Dalinje fled to Nyertete, then the rapid support forces has taken over Nyertete. People from Niala, they fled to Al-Fashir, then the rapid support force is now attacking and surrounding Al-Fashir in an attempt to attack and kill people. And if attack in Al-Fashir happen, people will die in millions because 99% of Niala's population has moved out of Niala. They mostly went into Al-Fashir. And right now they are under attack. A few people fled to Kadada, whereby they can find safety. Then the rapid support forces has immediately moved into Kadada and controlled Kadada. Right now we don't know what is going on in Kadada and what is the people of Kadada are facing right now. So we must call on the international community. Demand that intervention, robust intervention to protect civilians and enable humanitarian agencies to go in to save life. Then this will also help in paving the way for ICC or the International Criminal Court to investigate crimes so that they can bring those who are responsible to face trial. This situation right now, it is not a traditional conflict. It is not a civil war. It is a systemic genocide. It is an atrocity crimes that being committed in a systematic way. And the genocide, unfortunately, in Darfur right now is completely institutionalized and legitimized by having rapid support forces taking over the entire region. Where is the government? There is no government right now in Darfur. And in most cases, when military are there, they have done nothing to protect the people. And in places where they wanted to fight, from the capital and from the center, from Port Sudan, they have not received any support, any equipment, any ammunition, so that they can be able to protect civilians or to fight back, even to protect their own life. So we have seen the large number of military who fled Al Junaina to Chad. Can you imagine? And you think we have a government in Sudan? There is no government in Sudan right now. There is no government. Government means an institution that led by people who care about their people, who protect their people, who provide for their people. If Al-Burhan is genuine, he should call right now for an international intervention. He should call for international community, because he cannot feed the people of Sudan. He cannot protect the people of Sudan. He cannot provide for the people of Sudan. He failed the people. He created this problem for the people of Sudan. Why would we wait for them and expect that they do something? They cannot. Today, the people of Sudan have nobody. And let me tell you, the danger of rapid support forces controlling Darfur. They are not going to stop in Darfur. It is about controlling the Sudan. And when they control Darfur, if we let them control Darfur, if Al-Fashir collapse, this is what will happen. They have an airport in Al Junaina. They have an airport in Niyala. And they have Al-Fashir airport. Now those regional actors who are supplying them with weapons, they will come. Military plane will be landing in Niyala, and they will be launching attack against Kordofan. They will be launching attack against Central Sudan, and they will be launching attack against Eastern and Northern Sudan. And at that moment, there will not be anyone left to help these people, because right now many people from Khartoum have fled to these relatively safe regions. We just heard yesterday that there was a confrontation in Rabak. There was also confrontation in Jabal Awliya. And who knows in the coming days. So that's why I urge you, those who care about the situation in Sudan, to speak up. In the coming days, we are launching a campaign to call on President Biden to take a lead on resolving the current crisis in Sudan. We are also asking people to distribute letters to members of Congress. They reach out to your representative, congressman or woman. Every single individual in the United States have a congressman or woman that represent them, a legislator who is responsible of creating laws and legislation that direct the U.S. government work and priorities. So you must use your voice to speak up for these people, especially those of you who are Sudanese American. This is your government, and you must speak up to them and compel them. Tell them that in the face of genocide, we must not let our leaders to look the other way. They must take responsibility of protecting the people and ending genocide, holding those who are responsible accountable. And if we let the genocide in Darfur to go and address, believe me, it can happen in our backyard. Because the world now become a small village. The world has become a small village. And when people see that immunity being promoted, they will know that they will not be held accountable. If you can't hold the criminals in Sudan accountable, you cannot hold any criminal accountable. Accountability should not be selective. And that is why we must use every effort. Use your social media, use your direct email, direct mail, join us and share our campaign. We also have other partners led by international by Refugees International, who are also launching a campaign, reaching out, asking the Biden administration to announce the situation as an atrocity situation, whereby require an atrocity prevention approach to solution. So stay tuned and try to utilize every effort, because if we don't speak, then Darfur will be the most horrible story and the most regrettable situation of our lifetime, because right now there is an active genocide taking place. And you have to know, most of West and North Kordofan cities are controlled by the Rapid Support Forces. You know what? The danger of the situation right now in Sudan, most of Arab tribes in Darfur, 7 leaders, traditional administration, sheikhs and umdas and nazirs from the Arab leaders in Darfur, they have come together and they pledged allegiance and declared their full support to Rapid Support Forces, and they mobilize the youth from their communities to go out and help. So right now it's like entire tribes coming out against our people, and that is why you see the brutality that have been committed in Al Junaina and in Ardamata. And this cannot be resolved. Another dangerous trend also, you have to know that the Rapid Support Forces have multinational militias, mercenaries coming from various nations, West African nations, to fight in Sudan. They were promised the land, and they told them, if you can clear the land from these slaves, then you can take over the land. And the danger of that, they are fighting with strong determination to kill the people, wipe them out, clear the area so that they can take over the land, as they did in Al Junaina and in Ardamata. And the presence of this multinational troop, it will also create another regional dimension. Sudan is a country with a history of terrorism. Mali, Niger, all have elements of terrorism before. And if these Rapid Support Forces allowed to control Darfur, then they will also control the region, or they will create a spillover of this crisis and create a terrorist hub in Darfur and these other neighboring countries, Chad, Central African Republic, Mali, and Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mauritania. And at that moment, if the international community has not moved and do something today, at that moment they will be forced to intervene, but it will be too late. It will be too late. And that is why we need to speak up and tell them. So the situation today is beyond describable. I can't begin to describe. I think most of you have seen the videos of people who are mass murdered. You have been seeing the videos of massacre, and you have been seeing the videos of people who have been buried alive. And we have seen a video of someone who was forced to bury their fellow citizen, community members alive. He fed up and said, "Kill me." He was begging the Janjaweed militia to kill him. We should not be waiting to see a situation like this to go unnoticed. We must be outrageous. We must tell the whole world about what is happening right now in Darfur. Because the reason Darfur is going on right now is completely being isolated. There is no access to media. There is no international media. From April 15 through May, all the internationals has moved out of Sudan because of lack of safety. All international agencies have left the Sudan. We know in 2003 there was horrible genocide and continued. Genocide never stopped in Darfur. But right now the situation is most dangerous than in 2003 and even last year. Because now all the international presence is completely being eliminated, the presence of international humanitarian aid. Our people who have been driven out of their homes, to live in camp for 20 years. The people of Nuba Mountains and the Blue Nile were driven 11 or 12 years ago. The people of Darfur were driven out of their homes 20 years ago. All these people have been relying fully on humanitarian aid to survive. Today, that humanitarian aid has been completely eliminated. In some areas, people have been farming and they are relying on their own crops to survive. That element has been completely created. Most people relying on petty trade, daily jobs, daily labors in places like Khartoum, Al Jazeera, and other areas, that is completely eliminated right now. Imagine how many people will be able to survive for a month in Sudan without going out earning income, let alone being tortured, killed, raped, and forced out of their homes. And you are expecting them to be alive. What are you waiting for? This question is for my fellow Sudanese and my fellow Darfuris. What are you waiting for? Get out, speak up. Tell your children to tell this story to their classmates, to their teachers, to your neighbors. Tell them that our people are under attack, and the international community has been quiet about it. Most of the leaders, they have limited themselves to a few words of condemnation. All what they do is going to Jeddah, coming back from Jeddah. This is 7 months since the war started. Have we seen Jeddah produce any genuine or credible ceasefire? No. I will tell you, Jeddah to me is about the generals. It's not about the people of Sudan. What we are demanding is that an African Union unified venue, whereby led by African Union, because they do understand the context of our issue, and they have a history resolving crises like the crisis in Sudan, including ending the longest civil war between the South Sudan and the government in Khartoum in Sudan, whereby today has granted an independence for South Sudan. And even though things are not going well in South Sudan, but they are in a better situation today, South Sudan has become a refuge, a safe space for our people who are fleeing, crossing the border to South Sudan. And that is why I think the African Union have the capacity and also have the interest of the Sudanese people at heart. I don't think Saudi Arabia have the interest of the people of Sudan. We all know the war in Yemen, the history of the war in Yemen, and how the Rapid Support Forces and Al-Burhan came to grow into this prominence and accumulate money and wealth to be able to manipulate government in Sudan because of the war in Yemen. They have used the money from war in Yemen to enrich themselves and now destroying Sudan. And most Sudanese are now watching. I know it is traumatizing to have families who have been driven out of their homes. I know it is difficult. You all have been working day and night, picking another shift, picking additional job, second or third job. We all have been doing that since this crisis started. But we still have to do something about it. It is not enough to be angry. It's not enough to be traumatized and watch your people die in slow motion. No, we have to speak up for these people. We have to demand that, starting by asking President Biden to address the situation, to speak up. America is the most powerful country, and there are so many good people in the United States who stood up for us before and is still standing up for us. We must call on our allies to stand up with us. We must march the streets and call and tell them that today our people in Sudan are suffering. They are killed, they are massacred and murdered and wiped out. We must call on them to support us. All the international organizations right now, they are rallying, meeting and moving, trying to do their best. We must appreciate that and continue to remind them and call them and urge them that they must speak up. We want really simple solution, an international intervention right now to protect civilians. Civilians are dying. These are not people who are fighting. The people of Sudan, of course, the world is full of crises. And I know the crisis in the Middle East has taken the world attention. There is tragedy happening there, but at least there is a humanitarian flow. There are safe routes for people who are fleeing Palestine, and their attempt to release hostages. How many hostages have been taken, God knows, in Sudan? Women have been taken hostage. How many hostages have been taken in Darfur right now? Our people in Al-Fashir are staying kept hostage as I speak to you today. Please speak up. We must not tolerate all these tragedies. We echo the call that calling for ceasefire in the Middle East. We also must call for the end of genocide in Darfur. I know many people say the international community doesn't care about you. The international community and some Sudanese was like, we don't want intervention in our country. You don't have a country right now. You have people dying in silence. There is no country. The country has been destroyed. The capital of the state have been completely destroyed. There is no country. There is no government. A few giant groups went into Port Sudan and created their own government. They are protecting themselves. Most of these people, their families are out of Sudan. They don't care because they don't have families in Sudan. Unfortunately, we do. We do have mothers, sisters. All of our families are in Sudan right now. We don't know what is happening to them. And we know what we know, many people have been killed and continue to be killed. And we must not allow this to continue. We have to stand up for our people. Demand an intervention that will provide civilian protection and allow humanitarian agencies. Then accountability must follow. In Sudan today, no matter where they go and negotiate, there will not be peace with this genocide there unless there is accountability. You all know, in the case of Rwanda, the case of former Yugoslavia, and the case of Liberia, when Charles Taylor was taken out, it has not only granted the people of Liberia the opportunity to come together and create peace in their country, but to elect the first ever woman president. And they continue to be in peace. And that is exactly the approach that we want the international community to take right now in Sudan. Because the situation in Sudan is not a civil war. It is not a conflict. Using traditional conflict resolution approach does not work. We have called for years, since 2019, that atrocity prevention approach must be taken to resolve Sudan. An atrocity prevention that starts with accountability, civilian protection, and access to humanitarian aid. And those who have been driven out of their homes must be allowed the right to return to their place of origin. Those places that are destroyed, they must be restored. People may have services. Then after that, people will have the will to negotiate and have peace and have a government that can represent them. But right now, you have the victim and the perpetrator. How could the victim and the perpetrator will be forced to make peace? Currently we are dealing with Hitler-like government, Hitler-like leaders who are exterminating people. Would it be possible for solution to be made if back then people were forced to negotiate with Hitler? A genocider will never make peace. You have to understand that, whether people like it or no. We only lived and survived to tell the truth. And we must tell the truth even if they don't like it. By telling the truth, you lose friends, but also you make new friends. And those friends that you make them down the road, these are real friends. Because not many people speaking the truth. Not many people dare to tell the truth. But it is the truth. There is nothing left for us to shy away. There is nothing left for us to be afraid of when our people are dying in masses. I would like to thank our American friend and the international advocacy human rights organization who continue to focus on Sudan even after 2 decades. But we need to stand up and support them, shoulder by shoulder with them. We must see more Sudanese coming out, like in 2019. When Sudanese came out, they were able to topple the dictator. We want now. It is not possible right now on the ground, but it is possible where you live right now in the United States. You must rally, organize protest, speak up. Similar letters can be sent if you are in the United States, as I said. You must reach out to your representative, to congressman or woman representing your district. Reach out to them. Use your social media to speak up for the people of Sudan. Speak up for the people of Darfur. If you are in Canada or Europe or Australia, use these letters to tailor it into your local context and send it to your representative. The member of parliament will be your legislators in those countries. Also bring all the association and all the organization together and sign onto the letter and deliver it to your foreign minister. We must rally behind our people and speak up and make our voice louder to protect and end this mass killing and massacres that has been allowed to continue for more than 2 decades, and now it is peak or final stage of completing the Darfur genocide. We must not let that go without calling for an action that will end it. Please speak up for Sudan. Please speak up for Darfur. Darfur needs you more than ever before. If we remain silent, silence only helps the perpetrators. Many people will die in silence if we cannot speak for them. Please use your voice. If we can collectively speak in one voice, we will compel our leaders to act and take measures that will end the genocide and protect the people in Darfur and in Sudan at large. Thank you for listening to us, and thank you for your time.